Michael Saylor says never sell your Bitcoin.
You do not sell your Bitcoin.
Smart advice, but while you've been stacking sats, institutions accumulated 1.3 million Bitcoin in just 23 months. They now control 6% of the total supply. And they're not slowing down. Here's why this should terrify you. Every single day, miners create 450 new Bitcoin. Since January 2024, ETFs have absorbed 900 per day on average. They're buying all the new supply, plus draining existing holders. BlackRock alone now owns over 800,000 Bitcoin. That's more than most countries will ever hold. And this is the only real threat to Bitcoin. I'll explain why soon, but I was doing the exact same thing. Stacking sats, feeling smart, thinking I was early. Then I looked at what happens when they own the majority, and it's not good. Turns out there is one thing that stops it still. It's spending Bitcoin. And I know that sounds completely backwards to hodling, but the reason why is something most people never actually think about.
Before I explain how this works, here are two stories people always get so wrong. Laszlo spent the equivalent of over $1 billion on pizza, and Simon Dixon spent this.
That we knew, some of the worst purchases I've ever made. We bought our house for 1,000 Bitcoin.
Everyone hears those stories and feels sorry for them, but this is what Dixon says.
It's going to be the worst investment you ever make. But this is the journey of a Bitcoiner, earn more Bitcoin every month. And then when you need to fulfill certain obligations, know that this is going to be the worst investment you ever make, buying a house. But does it provide you with another need, security, whatever it is that's right for you? We wanted to build a castle on an island with the best security possible because safety became important. So we set about doing that. And it was the worst investment we ever made.
The journey, not hold forever and never touch it. Laszlo proves that Bitcoin was money and neither stopped accumulating it. So that's what everyone misses. When you spend Bitcoin, you're building that circular economy, and this is what makes it unstoppable.
First though, I know what you're already thinking. If I spend my Bitcoin, I won't have any left. Not quite true. We're talking about spend and replace. Spend Bitcoin, then replace it with the fiat that you would have spent anyway. Your stack stays exactly the same. Look, I'm still working my way to living fully on a Bitcoin standard, but I've met loads of people now who actually do this. They haven't used a debit or credit card in years. Places like Madeira, Costa Rica, Lugano, or Berlin in El Salvador. But there are people living on a Bitcoin standard in the USA too. How? Apps like Strike convert your paycheck to Bitcoin automatically. You live normally on a credit card, pay it off in Bitcoin at the end of each month, set up automatically. Your stack stays the same, but you're spending in Bitcoin. Basically, all of your money just goes into Bitcoin. How do I know that most people still don't choose to spend Bitcoin? I got the reality check when I went to Prague Bitcoin conference, which is easily the best Bitcoin conference in the world. There was so much signal there, everyone seemed to really understand Bitcoin. But then the merchants everywhere were accepting Bitcoin, and people were still pulling out Visa cards. That's the exact problem. If these people are choosing not to spend Bitcoin, then what do you think the average public is doing? I choose Bitcoin payment whenever I can. Why? Because I know how much it helps the network. I'll show you what the virtuous cycle looks like soon, but Mike, no one near me accepts Bitcoin. There's 3 simple tips here. First, check btcmap.org. Square just started accepting Bitcoin payments. That's millions of new merchants in the last month alone. Check the map if you haven't looked recently. Second, just ask. Barbers, cafes, ice cream trucks, just ask if they accept Bitcoin.
Do you accept Bitcoin? Still no. You know it can save on the fees though.
Last week before my local Bitcoin meetup, I actually just asked a kebab shop. Wasn't really expecting much, usually get there not really interested. It turned out I was speaking to the owner. He downloaded the Wallet of Satoshi app right there in front of me on his phone. Next month, I'm bringing the entire meetup to his shop to show him what Bitcoin can actually do. Because there's 2 massive benefits for any business. 1, 0 transaction fees. Card readers charge 1 to 3% normally. And 2, you get on the BTC map. Attracts new customers at Bitfest in Manchester. Billy explained how this transformed his burger shop by the train station. People go out of their way to pay in Bitcoin. There's no downsides to accepting Bitcoin. And then third, use apps like Strike, as we've already mentioned, to live on a Bitcoin standard. Transfer all your money into Bitcoin, use that Bitcoin to pay it off at the end of each month using a credit card. I haven't found one in the UK yet, but it's a simple way to start living on Bitcoin standard today if you are in the USA. Now, I know what you're thinking, what about tax? I'll get to that in a minute, but first, here's why people think they understand economics. But Mike, Gresham's law, bad money drives out the good, so shouldn't I just be spending dollars and saving Bitcoin? Okay, let's get this straight, because people get this completely wrong. Gresham's law says people spend bad money and save good money. Gresham's law only applies when one currency is rapidly collapsing. In Venezuela, spending the local currency immediately and saving Bitcoin makes total sense. That is Gresham's law. But in the UK or the US or a Western country, your currency is melting slower. If you just save Bitcoin and spend pounds, you're treating it like gold in a vault. It never circulates. It just becomes another asset BlackRock accumulates. We need to spend Bitcoin to create the circular economy. That's how it becomes the real global free market instead of just a speculative asset. But here's the objection everyone throws at me. The tax is insane though. Let me try and reframe this for you. First, in the UK, you get £3,000 capital gains tax-free allowance each year. So if you spent £3,000 in Bitcoin and it's all gain, zero tax. You just spent Bitcoin to strengthen the network for free. Many people won't even hit that in their first year of spending Bitcoin. And even if you just spend a few $100s using Bitcoin per year, that is infinitely better than spending zero. Think about that. But let's say you go beyond that allowance. You spend £10,000 in Bitcoin over the year, it went up 80%, so your gain is £4,444. Remember, the first £3,000 of gain is tax-free, and so you only pay tax on £1,444. Tax at 20%, that's £289. You paid £10,000 over the course of the year, and you spent £289 in tax to help secure a $2 trillion network that can make you generationally wealthy. And arguably, way more importantly, it supports the first global free market ever, which helps everyone, including you, Dan. And if Bitcoin becomes what we think it can become, that £289 in tax today could save you from living in a world where BlackRock controls your money. That's not a tax. That's the best insurance policy you'll ever buy. So here's the real question. What's it worth to you to ensure Bitcoin stays decentralized? Because if you won't pay £289 to protect the network, but BlackRock will pay billions to control it, who do you think wins? Okay, now you understand the economics, but here's the part that should actually scare you. And most people have no idea this is happening because we're running out of time faster than most people realize. Bitcoin ETFs are accumulating faster than Bitcoin is being mined. Right now, 450 Bitcoin are mined every day. But the Bitcoin ETFs, remember, they've been buying over 900 Bitcoin per day on average. They're buying all the newly mined Bitcoin plus absorbing supply from existing holders. So in less than 2 years, they've accumulated nearly 7% of Bitcoin's total supply. So why does this matter? Because if they own the majority, they can fork Bitcoin to add features they want. A fork is when Bitcoin splits into two versions. It's like a road dividing. Everyone chooses which path to follow. When a fork happens, they choose which fork to support. Maybe the fork adds reversible transactions for institutional protection. Sounds reasonable, right? But it breaks Bitcoin's core property, immutability. Basically, whenever you make a transaction, that exists forever. Bitcoin at a coffee shop, the institution decides your transaction violated their terms. They reverse it. That's what institutional protection means. Whichever fork the institutions choose becomes Bitcoin in most people's eyes because the miners are always going to follow the money. But if you self-custody and run your own node, you get a vote. Your node is literally your vote on which rules Bitcoin follows. If hundreds of thousands of people are running nodes and actually using Bitcoin, institutions can't just decide for everyone. But if everyone just hodls in ETFs, you're holding a promise from BlackRock. They hold the actual Bitcoin. When they support a fork that benefits them, your paper follows. You don't get asked. There's no circular economy, no merchant adoption, no nodes. The institutional forks wins by default. One behavior stops all of this, and this is what the virtuous cycle looks like. You spend Bitcoin, so you self-custody. You self-custody, so you run a node. You run a node, so you get a vote. When you spend Bitcoin, merchants see the demand for it, and then more merchants accept it. More people self-custody to spend it, and the circular economy grows. I was running a ledger and had my node on a hard drive that I had never actually used. Got on a call with the Bitcoin Way and set up a Start9 node. Now, when a fork happens, I get a say. Links in the description, 5% off for a Start9. A cafe in El Salvador accepts Bitcoin. Their supplier does too. The farmer does too. The loop closes and there's no banks, no permission, just people trading value directly. And that's 8 billion people in service of 8 billion people. The first global free market in human history, but only if we actually use it.
I've said very similar things to this before, and I remember receiving comments like this. But I was literally listening to a podcast by Jeff Booth, and I heard him say this.
In 5,000 years of human history, until Bitcoin, we've never not lived in an exploitive system. And why might that be? Because if you looked at game theory and payoff matrices with game theory, you could say, even if you wouldn't get caught and the payoff was outstanding, it was a huge number. Let's say 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 20 million, 100 million, it just kept going. 2.5 to 10% of people won't cheat.
So it's made me realise that I'm not actually speaking to probably 90 to 97.5% of people. So there's a good chance I might not even be speaking to you right now.
But here's why I think I'm speaking to more than that percent, and the good news for Bitcoin.
Those anonymous people who wouldn't cheat are the people that lean into the system, run nodes, and watch this and keep it decentralized and secure and always looking for attack vectors. And 2.5 to 10% of people is a huge number of nodes. So it's tipped the scales to the honest win.
However, I've also received comments like this. And this is exactly the reason why I've started this channel, is because the more people that can communicate this, people will just hear it differently from different people. So this is how the network works and how it grows. And even though I'm not making like hardly any significant money from this, a little bit from ads, there is a selfish motive behind it, because I want to live in this global free market as soon as possible. And the more people that contribute to this, the quicker we all get there.
And the reason this is so hard for everyone to understand, Jeff explains.
It's the greatest change humans have ever gone through.
Yeah.
So no wonder it's confusing for people, because it's that great a change. This is something that I'm really careful on. That's why I say if it stays decentralized and secure, that is inevitable. Not that might happen. That will happen for sure. 8 billion people in service of 8 billion people.
So Saylor isn't wrong about never selling. Bitcoin is going to go up forever if it stays decentralized and secure. But people misunderstand what he's saying. Bitcoin isn't an investment. It's money, and money that doesn't circulate becomes a speculative asset controlled by whoever accumulates the most. It's exactly what happened to gold. So here's your choice. Get rich in dollars or build a global free market. If everyone hodls in ETFs, institutions own the majority. They fork, they choose their version. That becomes Bitcoin. You try to spend it to someone that they don't want you to, transaction denied. You don't own Bitcoin anymore. You own BlackRock's permission to use their system. That is the future if all of us just did nothing about it. But when we use it, spend it, replace it, self-custody, run nodes, Bitcoin honestly becomes unstoppable. The institutions are already making their choice. So what's yours? So here's a really simple thing you can do right now. Just go and get a Lightning wallet, such as an app like the wallet of Satoshi, BitKit, or Strike, and put some Bitcoin on it. Then when the opportunity arises, you're ready to spend it. If you have somewhere local that accepts Bitcoin, go and support them whenever you can. Tell a friend about that place and encourage others to use them. And even if still you have no intention of actually spending Bitcoin anywhere, because never sell your Bitcoin, just ask people if they accept Bitcoin whenever possible. You'll be amazed what this actually does for adoption. Because this time next year, BlackRock's probably going to be owning another 200,000 Bitcoin. Now you understand the game theory, but if you can't see what Bitcoin is actually building, why would you ever change your behavior? How do I know? Because until I saw it, I was exactly the same. Bitcoin isn't just number go up technology. It's building the first true global free market where technology makes everything cheaper forever, where prices fall every year. Your time becomes abundant. Your children inherit possibility instead of debt. To see what that looks like, you need to watch this video next. Because if you don't understand where we're going, you won't understand why any of this matters.